In a rough part of town, Smith, an ex-Black Ops soldier, is sitting on a bench eating a carrot. A distressed pregnant woman then limps past him. A car speeds around the corner, and a man angrily yells after the woman before following her into an alley. Smith watches the entire ordeal like a movie, but when he sees the man pull a gun, he decides to get involved. The pregnant woman tries to defend herself with a pistol but misses. The man pulls a knife to attack her, but Smith attacks him and kills him with the carrot through the head. More men pull up, so Smith arms himself and tells the woman to escape. She escapes the room under gunfire, and Smith engages the men. With some expert skills, he shoots an oil tank and slides in the oil, taking out multiple men. He then finishes off the rest of the men in a hail of bullets. He goes to help the woman, who is now in labor in the middle of the gunfight. He manages to help her deliver the baby in the chaos, even shooting the umbilical cord, but the thug's boss, Hertz, opens fire on them. Smith grabs the woman and baby and hides them away. Hertz is closing in on them, but Smith ambushes and disarms him. He demands to know why he is after the woman, but Hertz just begins speaking in riddles while looking down the barrel of the gun. Smith tries to pull the trigger, but the gun only recognizes Hertz's fingerprint. While Hertz continues to gloat, Smith busts him over the face and takes off running. He retrieves the woman and the baby, asking her to tell him her name, only to realize that the woman has been shot dead. He goes to leave as the men are closing in but changes his mind and grabs the baby. He escapes to the rooftops, holding off the incoming stream of men opening fire at him. Smith then turns and makes a run for it under gunfire, jumping across the rooftop and landing in another apartment. The two men then stare each other down before Smith escapes. Hertz and his men clean up the scene. One of his men got shot in the butt, and Hertz kicks him for good measure. He demands to know who the strange man is, but the underling has no idea and tries to explain what happened. The underling promises not to make the same mistake again, and Hertz keeps him to his word by shooting him in the ass. Smith is walking with the baby, trying to avoid the stares of the people around. He sees a man in a suit watching him from a distance but continues to make his way until he enters a restroom. He is keeping an eye out for his attacker when his gun accidentally falls into the toilet. He retrieves the gun, quickly trying to clean it up as the man closes in on his location. The man gets to the restroom and pulls a gun. Smith tries to fire, but his gun jams, and he is forced to take cover as the assassin opens fire. Smith then turns out the lights and attacks the man, using the hand dryer to disarm him. The man tries stabbing Smith with a blade, but Smith holds him off, dries his gun, and fires a shot. He holds the man back as he escapes with the baby. He boards a bus with the wailing baby, and realizing that it may be cold, he removes his stinky sock and covers its head. Hertz is traveling with his men when he is notified that Smith has been spotted and orders his men to turn around. Smith makes his way to a crowded park and lays the baby on a carousel, telling it that someone will find it soon. A woman sees the baby and goes for it when she is suddenly shot dead by Hertz with a sniper rifle. He aims for the baby, but Smith shoots the carousel, causing it to spin and throwing Hertz off. Smith manages to keep this up and then grabs the baby and escapes to the shock of Hertz. Smith heads to an apparent convent, which turns out to actually be a brothel. He demands to speak with Quintana, the woman in charge, ignoring the woman's pleas to stop. Smith enters a room where Quintana is serving a client and throws the man out. He shows her the baby and offers her $5,000 to take care of it. Quintana refuses, suspecting that he may have stolen the child, but he denies this. He tells her to keep the baby just for one day and places it in her arms, but she returns it to him, telling him to forget it. Hertz is burying his dead men. He still has the dead pregnant woman in his car, and he steals a squeeze from her tit. He smells the breast milk and, then remembering the baby needs to be fed, orders his men to find him every wet nurse and lactating hooker. His search soon leads him to Quintana and tells his men to leave him alone with her. He asks about the man with the baby, and Quintana admits to meeting him and gives up his name as Smith. Hertz pulls his gun, firing shots to make the barrel hot and pressing it against her leg, demanding to know more about Smith. He goes to put the gun to her coochie when Smith turns up, holding him at gunpoint. Hertz also aims his gun at Smith, but Smith knows he has fired all his shots. Smith pulls him into the hallway, where all his men are already dead. Hertz notices he also has a fingerprint-activated gun and thinks he cannot shoot, but Smith reveals the severed owner's hand. Hertz charges at him with a blade, but Smith shoots him in the chest. He takes the baby and tells Quintana to pack her things. They walk along the street, and she is furious at him for taking so long as she could have been killed. Smith is looking for a car to steal when he spots a man park a BMW at a no parking sign and steals it, calling BMW owners pricks. Hertz survives the shot to the chest as he is wearing a vest. His wife calls him, and he lies that his business is taking a bit longer and he will have to be out of town. Smith explains to Quintana how he met the woman and the baby. She wonders why he doesn't go to the police, but Smith claims to be the real Unabomber. He then notices a man driving a Mercedes-Benz switching lanes without signaling, noting how it pisses him off. The driver then throws garbage out the window, which triggers Smith, who forces the man off the road and causes him to crash. Hertz contacts an associate demanding a lot more men to back him up. Smith and Quintana stop by a gun shop to grab weapons when he notices the same man in the suit outside. Quintana steps outside with the baby, but soon Smith loses sight of her. He goes to check when he sees the baby in a box and Quintana giving a man head, claiming it's to make some money. She then buys a bulletproof vest for the baby. Smith takes Quintana back to his place, which is in a junkyard. He removes a rat from a brick space, which he uses to open his door using a mechanism. Hertz is driving through the city when he sees the BMW with broken glass parked outside the gun shop and tells the men to stop. His men doubt Smith was here, but Hertz notes that he knows people inside out. Quintana wonders who could want the baby dead, but Smith has no idea, calling the baby in it. Quintana thinks he's mean and wonders if he likes anything, but Smith only likes his privacy. He then picks up a carrot to eat. Outside, Hertz has somehow tracked down Smith's apartment with his men and is puzzled as to how he is doing this. Hertz then reminds them that he was once a forensic behavior consultant. He manages to break into the apartment, willing to lead his men as a leader who stays in the rear takes up the rear. Upstairs, Smith is wrapping the baby in newspaper as he is out of diapers, considering calling the baby Oliver. He is then switching through channels on the TV and notices that the baby is quiet when heavy metal music is playing, maybe because it was born in a gunfight. Hertz is notified that men are in place on the roof. He then tells the small army of men before him that if Smith lives, then they will all pay. He then sends the men to attack. Smith and Quintana are talking when a man rushes into the room but is swiftly shot by Smith. Quintana escapes into a lift, while Smith begins taking out the men with precision. He runs out but uses a conveyor belt to grab another gun and take out some attackers. He then launches himself Matrix style, ambushing a hiding man. Smith pulls out all the stops, using every move in his book to battle the seemingly unlimited stream of men. He grabs a submachine gun, takes out a man who came through the roof, before using his rappel to descend the stairs, wiping out multiple men. He spots Hertz and opens fire, but Hertz manages to shoot the rope, causing Smith to fall. The baby is fine, though, and Smith escapes with Quintana. Hertz and his men track them down with a dog, which leads them to a garbage dump. The men stand ready with guns, but Hertz soon realizes that Smith has duped him by tying Oliver's diapers to the tail of a rat. Smith suspects that Oliver's mother worked in or lived by a club, which is why he likes loud music. They head to a club nearby where Smith encounters the pregnant mother and head inside. They meet the owner of the club, who refuses to give them any info, so Quintana grabs a piercing on his no-no area and rips it off. The owner then painfully explains that he rented his upstairs to a man in a suit a year ago and never saw them again. He allows Smith to enter the room, where Smith stumbles upon a scene of multiple men in suits dead. He sees a picture of 3 women, which also includes the pregnant woman. They head further into the apartment, where they stumble upon the same man in a suit who is reporting to his employer that everyone is dead, but one woman delivered a baby. Smith and Quintana hide in another room while the man passes to meet with other men, telling them to sweep the building. Smith and Quintana enter another room to see a dead woman, and it is filled with sperm samples seemingly only from one donor. They also see bone marrow samples, and Smith deduces that someone is trying to create a cure using blood-related babies. There also seems to be another party at play that doesn't want the cure created. An armed man senses that someone is inside and comes to check, but Smith kills him with a carrot to the eye. Smith and Quintana hide out in a motel. He has spread the word to every news and secret agency about the incident and what he found out, hoping that once the news breaks, they will be safe. Quintana wonders why Smith dragged her into this and notes he is unaware of the stress it puts on her. He has given her a baby to take care of without asking what happened to her own child. She goes to put the baby to sleep in the tub. Smith asks about her child, and Quintana explains that her pimp had punched her in the stomach and her child was stillborn. Oliver starts to cry, so Smith calms him down by teaching him about his gun, which Oliver seems to love and falls back asleep. This seems to turn Quintana on, as she now wants to get her cheek smashed. The two are getting busy when an assassin enters with a high-powered machine gun. Smith doesn't miss a beat, grabbing his gun and shooting the men, all while keeping Quintana riding. Afterwards, Smith notices the assassins are all carrying an unreleased gun from a company Hamerson. Hertz tells his men to bring him to the west side so he can report into his employers, as he has an idea of who their target is. Smith wants to keep Quintana and Oliver safe and brings them to a World War museum, wanting them to hide inside a M24 tank, and Quintana thinks he is crazy. He leaves Quintana a firearm, placing the trigger guard over her finger as a promise that he will return for her. Smith then sees a mother spanking her child, grabs her, and begins to spank her in return. Quintana uses this distraction to climb into the tank. Smith then turns up outside Hamerson Company with his gun ready. Inside, Hertz is meeting with Hamerson. Using some vague details, he explains how he figured out who their target is, noting how Smith was an excellent shot during his younger years and was recruited by Black Ops and never heard from again. Hamerson scolds Hertz as all he has are theories, and orders him to take care of Smith and the baby. All this time, Smith is overhearing their conversation. He stealthily moves around the factory, avoiding guards and setting up booby traps with the guns. Smith moves forward to get a closer look, but Hertz, Hamerson, and their men open fire, revealing they found him out. Hertz promises to spare Smith's life if he gives up Quintana and Oliver, but Smith throws a carrot and shoots one of Hertz's men. He is impressed, wondering which agency trained him. He then reveals he knows how Smith's wife and kid were both killed in a shootout in a burger joint. Smith knows better than to react, realizing he is being cornered. He takes out the two men, then leads the others into the multiple traps he has set up around the factory. He then wipes out an entire team of men with a mounted machine gun. Smith then jams a machine gun with a carrot and throws it, then uses the distraction to shoot his way out of the factory. He returns to Quintana, telling her that Hamerson is the one that wants the baby dead. He wonders who wants the baby until he sees a newspaper featuring Senator Rutledge. He would put Hamerson out of business if he is elected president, but Rutledge has the big C and is trying to use the babies to find a cure. Smith now realizes that he has both Hamerson and government agents after him and needs to have Quintana and Oliver leave the city by bus. If he doesn't get to her before she gets off the bus, he doesn't want to know where she is as people will be after him. Smith is leading her to the bus station when a black van begins chasing after them. Smith jumps over the bridge, landing inside a parked car below. The men catch up with him and open fire. Smith loses his gun, but with quick thinking he brakes hard and knocks out one of the men. He then picks up the man's gun and unloads into the van. Just then, his car is hit and flips, and Oliver falls out. Smith returns for Oliver and tries to grab him but misses. More men open fire on his car, but Smith rams the van, launching himself inside and shooting all the men dead. At that moment, Hertz arrives on the scene and runs Oliver over, but it turns out to be a fake. It turns out Oliver was still inside the tank, and Quintana returns for him. Smith then reaches out to Senator Rutledge and gets in contact with his Secret Service agent, the same man in the suit. Smith demands to speak with the senator, and Agent Suit tells him the senator wants to see him too and gives him the senator's private jet location. Agent Suit leads Smith to Rutledge's private plane. He comes face to face with the senator and they take off. Rutledge admits to the entire plot to find him a cure and thinks that Smith has come to deliver him the baby. Smith then suddenly disarms a nearby agent and holds Rutledge at gunpoint. Smith reveals he knows Rutledge made a deal with Hamerson, noting from Hamerson's dog hairs on his pants. Hertz and Hamerson then reveal themselves on the plane, confirming that Rutledge was in a deal with them. The men reveal that the senator made a deal with them to spare his life, and he will allow Hamerson and Hertz to deal their guns secretly. Smith drags Rutledge to another section of the plane, ignoring his pleas that he just wanted to live. Smith then escapes to the lower floor of the plane before the agents and Hertz can get to him. Agent Suit tells him there is no escape, but Smith is only buying time for Quintana and Oliver. He ties Rutledge to the door, telling him that his death will keep the baby safe and usher in stricter gun laws. Smith then shoots Rutledge in the head, killing him. Hertz tries to enter, but Rutledge's weight stops him. Smith then skydives from the plane with armed men diving and shooting after him. Smith takes out a few of the men, but when he runs out of bullets, he dives towards an attacker, using him as a human shield. Smith is hit in the arm but pulls the parachute of his human shield and takes out the shooter. The last man is Agent Suit, and he catches up with Smith, who kicks him into the blades of a nearby helicopter. He lands and walks through the wreckage and pile of bodies. He is losing a lot of blood and collapses inside a building. He wakes soon after with Hertz holding a gun to him, telling him not to move. Quintana is heading to the bus but sees no sign of Smith, who is currently being dragged before Hamerson. Hertz gloats, thinking he has finally caught Smith. Hertz demands to know where Quintana and the baby are, and when Smith refuses, Hertz breaks his fingers. Smith bears the pain. Smith tells Hertz he won't be able to cover this up, but he reveals that Rutledge's plane has crashed and no bodies recovered, so taking out Smith, Quintana, and Oliver is the next step. Hertz continues to torture Smith, and Quintana is forced to leave without him. Hertz then picks up a scalpel and gets close, so Smith headbutts him and uses the scalpel and his blood to attack the men, killing Hamerson in the process. Smith goes to escape, and Hertz corners him with a gun. Smith tries to let off shots, but his fingers are too broken. He stumbles into another room and drops beside a fireplace. Hertz walks over to him smugly, but Smith places live bullets between his broken fingers and detonates them with a fire, hitting Hertz. Smith picks up his gun, and Hertz struggles to his feet. Both men painfully raise their guns, but Smith is quicker and finally kills Hertz. Smith travels with Duchess to an ice cream parlor, where Quintana works as a waitress while watching Oliver. Surprised to see each other alive, Smith and Quintana kiss passionately. When amateur armed robbers enter the parlor and, despite his hands being bandaged, Smith shoots them by using a carrot to pull the trigger.